Breaking news on the Iran war just moments ago. President Trump posted this to Truth Social. Quote, "We're offering a very fair and reasonable deal, and I hope they take it, because if they don't, the United States is going to knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran. No more Mr. Nice Guy," all caps. Joining us now, Congressman Derek Tran of California. He is a member of the House Armed Services Committee. Congressman, thank you for coming to the weekend. Just your initial reaction to hearing, and that's just part of the social media post that the president just posted.
Right, absolutely. I think what we're dealing with when it comes to President Trump is that, you know, these messages, these rhetoric, and what he's putting out there changes by the minute, and it's so hard to keep up. But when he posts things where he's going to commit genocide and he's going to, you know, bomb bridges and civilian infrastructure, that's a violation of international law. That's a war crime. So just hearing about our leader doing something like this is just beyond heartbreaking for Americans in the United States. It's just so upsetting to see as a member of Congress.
As a member of the House Armed Services Committee, though, do you have any, when the president and the administration says that we have a deal, that these are the terms, do you believe anything that comes from the president or his representatives in the administration?
I do not believe a single word out of his mouth. It's like when I catch my kid doing something bad and they tell me they didn't do it. I know that I cannot believe them, and I cannot believe this president.
Congressman, again, this truth is very long, and so we're digging through it now. One of the things that the president says is that my representatives are going to Islamabad, Pakistan. They will be there tomorrow evening for negotiations. He doesn't say who those folks will be. We have to assume that it's the similar group. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, maybe the vice president, possibly the president said earlier this week that was a possibility. He also says that if Iran doesn't take the deal, I assume the latest deal that they have, the United States is going to knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran. You talked about this the last round of Truth Social posts that he had. When you talk to experts on international law, they say if something is being used by civilians, it is rare that it is not some type of war crime or could be a war crime if you knock out an entire bridge or a power plant that the military is not using to their ends. When you're looking at all of this at the end of the day, what do the House Republicans say? Because I can imagine the ones on House Armed Services who do take this stuff very seriously look at this tweet and say, yeah, let's go.
Look, I think it's telling to see on the last War Powers resolution that we were one vote away in making sure that we rein in this president. And as this war continues, I'm all for making sure we vote every single week on a Wars Power resolution to hold all of my colleagues to a vote publicly condemning the actions of this president. I will say that, you know, most of my colleagues across the aisle, I think there is room for common sense and for them to come to an agreement where this war is not good for the United States of America, for our economy, and that is what it's going to take for them to come to the table and vote every week. That's what we should do.
Congressman, the Wall Street Journal's Josh Dawsey and Annie Linsky published an inside-the-room look at the last week about the president's decision-making with regards to Iran and some of those inflammatory and alarming Truth Social posts that he made threatening the destruction of their entire civilization. And one sentence that stood out to me, a nugget of reporting they had, was that the president calculated that seeming unstable could help spur the Iranians to negotiate and force them to come to the table. Do you think that worked? What is your take on this strategy? And, presumably Democrats do at least want the Iranians to come to the table to be able to negotiate. It just, how are you going to sort of rein in the way that the president is going about actually doing this?
It did bring them to the table last time, as the story notes.
Well, look, I am all for diplomatic solutions to all of this, right? But I don't think reckless, haphazard strategy is a strategy at all. And that's what we're seeing from this administration. You can't send in a team of negotiators whether it be Witkoff and Kushner and J.D. Vance, and then go on media and say, I believe it's going to fail. How do you set your own team up for failure like that? This is what we're seeing from this administration. Instead of investing in a true diplomatic remedy to what's happening that we're seeing, he is just destroying everything. And I don't think there is a strategy for us to exit out of this from this administration. And it's going to take Congress to get involved.
Let's put up the president's social media post again so folks can see it. Now, you see at the end it says, no more Mr. Nice Guy, after he says that the United States will knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran. That after no more Mr. Nice Guy, he writes, about the bridges, they'll come down fast, they'll come down easy, and if they don't take the deal, it will be my honor to do what has to be done. One, just talk about the moral implications of this. He's, as you said before, that would be a war crime. But I'm wondering, again, as a member of the House Armed Services Committee, if you are hearing from our European allies, our allies in the Pacific, about what is happening here and what is happening with the president and this administration as it wages war with Iran.
Look, I am hearing from our allies, right? I had the Norwegians in my office just a few days ago, and we're talking about the global implications of what this war is doing to oil prices, aluminum prices, fertilizer prices across the globe. My heart goes out to the Iranian people who are suffering because of what's happening right now in that country. I do believe that there is a solution to all of this that has to be done diplomatically, and to put more of our troops in harm's way. That is where I and so many of my armed services colleagues will continue to focus on, is to make sure that we get out of this entanglement that the president got us into.
When you were talking to the Norwegians, I assume Donald Trump came up. I assume, maybe I'm wrong, that his negotiating strategy and the way that he has been operating with these Truth Socials also came up. What did they tell you?
Look, they're deeply concerned about how things are going. Top of mind to them is NATO. Mm-hmm. You have an administration that continually wants to pull us out of NATO, that trash talks NATO. That doesn't help when it comes to our allies across the sea, who wants to see a stronger united front when it comes to our shared enemies.
From the House Armed Services perspective, how have the briefings been that you've been receiving from the Pentagon? Have you been receiving sufficient information? And what was the last update that you all received?
We've been receiving information. Calling it sufficient would not be what I would categorize it as. Last briefing we received on Iran was probably about a week and a half ago.
Wow. What'd they say?
Without divulging too much, look, a lot of the true information that we get as member happens in a classified setting. What they share in front of all of the public and to the rest of the members are very different from what is being said behind closed doors. But even then, there's a restriction to the information that the DOD is providing members of Congress.
All right, Congressman Derek Tran of California, thank you very much for coming to the weekend. We are going to continue following the breaking news with President Trump's new threat to knock out every single power plant and every single bridge in Iran. That's a direct quote. And we'll have more throughout the morning.